Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're unpacking one of the Horn of Africa's most urgent and fast evolving stories: Ethiopia's escalating dispute with Eritrea over Red Sea access. This is an evolving story. Last week, there were accusations that Eritrea was backing militant groups, which has now intensified. Addis Ababa is accusing Eritrea of direct military aggression, cross-border incursion, and joint maneuvers with armed groups along the border. These two nations, once bitter enemies and later uneasy allies, are slipping back into dangerous terrain. And beyond their rivalry, the crisis carries huge implications for the Horn of Africa and the wider continent. A renewed conflict here could destabilize regional economies, disrupt vital trade routes, inflame cross-border insurgencies, and accelerate violence in an already fragile part of Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. Please be sure to follow us on all platforms, share our page, so that you stay informed. To make sure that we give you guys the best content to help us make sense of all of this, we're joined by Yafet Mekonnen, an Ethiopian innovator who works and sits at the intersection of design, geopolitics, and supply chain strategy. He brings a unique lens to understanding how these tensions ripple through societies, markets, and regional security. So thank you very much, Yafet, for joining us.
The area of Missowa currently, which is called the Missowa, was occupied or captured by the Turkish. So Ethiopia was using that port as Eritrea, northern Eritrea, at the tip of Eritrea. Yes. So governments and empires, we were using different kind of ports. For example, the Islamic kingdom of Yafat or Sidama was using the Zayla port. So in different times, they were using different ports in different directions. But when the Turkish come to invade, to conquer Ethiopia, one of the problems was that they tried to capture these areas and try to enter to the center, meaning that the direction, when you see it from the direction, it is directly close to Ethiopia in order for them to Ethiopia. So after the Turkish, the Egyptians captured Missowa. After that, the British, while it was in the hands of the British, the Johannes IV, king of Ethiopia, one of the emperors of Ethiopia, had an agreement with the British, a general called Hewitt, to give him back the port of Missowa. But that was not successful. The Hewitt Treaty was not implemented. Well, it is implemented in eastern part of Ethiopia. They have given Johannes the right to capture that area, which we called Harar, in the 1970s, in the 1870s. So on the northern part, what they have agreed with the British General
and Harar is in the eastern part of Ethiopia.
He will let them. He will help them to escape from the Derbush, from those who were in Sudan, so that they were trying to escape the Derbush, so that they can give him back the Missowa. After they escaped the Derbush or the Mahadist, they sold it to the Italians. There was divisions in Ethiopian kingdom. Therefore, and it was the time of occupation and colonization in the Horn of Africa. So we have faced different kind of problems. So by the time that after the removal of King Johannes, King Menelik signed an agreement which give away, because there was no one to administer that area, the one which is called Eritrea, because they were divided after to take power from King Johannes. They took away the area which is called Eritrea, currently what we call Eritrea. So which was part of Ethiopia in the ancient kingdoms up to the 18th century, but they took it. The Italians start occupying those areas after the days of Johannes. So, and they have signed an agreement with King Johannes. So during the colonial times, we have been invaded twice. So let me wrap it up and reach to the point that we gained back our ports when after the removal of the fascist regime from Addis Ababa and from the Horn of Africa, including Eritrea, in coordinations with the other allied power, the British. We were part of the allied power, so based on the treaty signed in 1974, peace treaty, Italian peace treaty, it's internationally known as
So
Italian peace treaty. On the Article 34, Italy formally renounced all kind of agreements that they had with Ethiopia, which also give Ethiopia to gain access to the sea at the time. So there was different processes, but after a long struggle, Ethiopia got to be federated with Eritrea. So the federation between Ethiopia and Eritrea, it is a long story. I'm not going to dive into it, but during that time there was a proclamation which states
the Marxist
that
military junta from the
which makes the port
1970s
of
to
Assab, which belongs to
early
Ethiopia,
1990s.
as a independent administrator of its own. But when the EPRDF and the Eritrean rebels came to power in after they captured Addis Ababa in the 1990, they start using the United Nations step of uniting Eritrea with Ethiopia and remove everything, and they gave them everything, like the port of Assab and the port of Massawa. So Ethiopia lost two of its ports without an international known law. When Eritrea and Ethiopia were confederated, it was Resolution 390. Based on this document, for example, it says that they took three main points. One is the wish of the Eritrean people. The second is the economic activity of Eritrea. The third, the geographical, economic, talks about those things. And in particular, the resolution clearly stated that, in particular, the Ethiopia's right for access to the sea. So Eritrea was confederated with Ethiopia in the modern times because that Ethiopia should have gained its port back and become the regional power at the time during the Haile Selassie regime. And after that, when the Derg comes, it separates the two ports into two sides. When Eritrea got its independence, it should have gone with the port which on the north part, the Massawa, and leave the Assab port to Ethiopia, but they didn't because it was a transitional government to have done this. Young rebels who doesn't understand the international law as they have should.
So yeah, I think that's a good walk through the history. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't even know, especially the old history. Switching hands from
Pasha.
Ottoman Empire, the Egyptian.
Kadif Pasha. His name
I think
is
the
Kadif
word for
Pasha.
the Egyptian empire that was Khedivite or Khedivite, or roughly an empire, Egyptian empire. And I also didn't know the aspect of how the British. It seems the British really cooked a lot of people. I'm seeing all of these, Nathan. I don't know if you can make correlations with a lot of incidents. So the British helped. The British assured or promised Emperor Johannes By the way, the Empire, like, it would be good for our editor to put a picture up. Emperor Johannes has these really cool cornrows, and it's good for, like, bumper stickers and stuff. It's really cool. So anyway, so Emperor Johannes was promised Eritrea, what is now Eritrea, right, and access to the sea in exchange for helping the British defeat or confront the Mahdist sort of group of people that were very anti-British and British colonialism. Although Sudan eventually became a British colony, and then ultimately the British gave it to Italy. And it's interesting. I think one question is, in the
After the
Africa, the
Berlin
Scramble of Africa
Conference.
happened in
At the
1884,
time, it was in
1885.
the hands of
At that
Ethiopia.
time, had Italy already had control of Eritrea, or was that given to Italy at that
Yes,
time? That was
yes.
that when
So it
that happened
is returned back to us in the
after the Berlin Conference. And so,
in the 90s when
oh, I see. Okay,
in
so that
the
was the period in which it was actually given back to
1950s.
Ethiopia.
Yes, in the 19th century. But
So then,
when after Italy came there, they first buy a port, which is called the Asab port.
19th century,
A
like early 19th century,
a local sultanate
like
sold
1850s or
to
so.
the Italian company this port
I
called
see.
Asab.
And then, yeah, the famous Asab port
Two, after the Second World
territory
War,
at that time, after World War One.
Italy was part of the Axis power, and Italy has committed a lots of.
Yeah.
For example, in Addis Ababa, Italy has
Okay.
killed about 32,000 people
Was
in
when
3
they
days,
lost it.
just because a mass killing of these people,
Mm.
Ethiopians, because they revolted, massacre. Yes. During that time, because of these reasons, that
The Addis
the British,
Ababa
the
massacre.
Americans, they all
Is that the
gathered
one that's
together
called
and they decided
Yekat
that
or Yikat?
Ethiopia could get this
Yeah.
return. They will return it to Ethiopia, but they have made us have a big process, a long process to gain it back. This land itself belongs to Ethiopians. Whether if you mention the Asab or the other parts, but they were not. They were making it more complicated for us. First, it is to encircle us because they know that, especially in the 1989, after we defeated the Italy, there is an agreement called the Tripartite Treaty, which officially what they have said and what they really did are two different things. Officially, they said officially what they have addressed to King Minilik at the time is they have agreed to recognize the independence of Ethiopia, but what they have agreed, secretly, is that to divide Ethiopia, and the eastern part will go to Djibouti, which was under the French, and the Italians will connect Italy, the Eritrea with Mogadishu, Somalia, or Italian Somaliland, and mainly the British will get the Nile, the origin of the Nile River. So this agreement, they after they encircle Ethiopia, they have made a lot of problem for us. So one of the problems is this one that we face today. But even though that all the treaties that we had with the Italians were cancelled, we're still having a problem because of another step made by Ethiopian and Eritrean administration. But the question of Ethiopia starts not only on the request of the sea, but it goes beyond, and how Eritrea got its independence also. Is it legitimate?
So I think another thing that you said also was the UN Resolution 390, which stipulated access to the sea, but I don't think that wasn't done because of, I guess, the chaos of the wars and the new governments at that time. There was the fall of the Marxist regime led by
Ethiopian
Mengistu
people,
Hailemariam, who
Revolutionary
led the
Democratic
Derg,
Front.
and he was succeeded by the EPR, Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Forces. Is that the correct name of the acronym? Democratic, yeah. EPRDF, which was led by the TPLF, which was largely a group of, from my understanding, a group
Eritrea.
of students from northern Ethiopian region of Tigray that
APFF, yes.
eventually took over and had some kind of an alliance with the Ethiopian, the Eritrean
He's an 80
secessionist
years old,
forces.
by the way.
I forgot the
He's 80
name.
years old.
TPLF?
He's 80. His age now, yes,
Yeah,
become
led by
80.
Isaias Afwerki, who has
Yeah.
been president since the 1990s, which is an interesting fact as well. So you had Mao Zenawi on one side. Mao Zenawi was president of Ethiopia from the 1990s to, I know he passed away in 2012, but he was president. Yeah, so he was president for that period. Isaias Afwerki has been president ever since. But I think the next question probably, so to set the scene for the next question, with regards to ASAP, after Ethiopia lost the access to the sea in 1993, it has been described as a mistake. It has been described as a noose around the necks of what really is the most populous country, second most populous country in Africa, and the most populous landlocked country. There's only like 44 landlocked countries right now. Ethiopian neighbors, Eritrea. Its border to the Red Sea is, I think, maybe 20 kilometers or so. It's quite a thin uh, separation. And then Djibouti, which was a former French colony, as you said, and then Somalia, which was a former Italian colony, although Somaliland was an autonomous, unrecognized entity, only recognized by Israel, which was formerly British. Somaliland is in the northern part of the map of Somalia, whose capital is Hargeisa. Somalia is in its recognized entities, capital is Mogadishu. Then on the south there is Kenya.
Yeah.
Priority.
In any state,
Yeah,
that you cannot give something which you can have an advantage of, like you cannot give your what is the word for it, like what you can gain something out of, you know. But they were really working for Eritrea than the Ethiopian community. The people of Addis Ababa many times has shown that their dislike for this administration, because that administration at the time, because of one of the questions was this one. But during even the 1998 war between Ethiopia and Eritrea, after they complete the war, they went to the Algiers Agreement. So when they go to the Algiers Agreement, they agree to bring their debate in front of the court. When they went there, their evidence based on the Algiers Agreement is going to focus on the 1902 agreement, 1908 agreement, and 1900 agreements. Those three agreements are the basis for their debate. What happened is that the Italians will claim anything because they are colonizers. They're trying to grab lands anywhere. So they make different kind of maps. We should not agree on that, because already the former colonizer of Eritrea, Italy, have denounced those agreements totally. So they argue based on an agreement which is denounced already, while they've been told they were more working for Eritrea than they were working for Ethiopia. Yeah. So it's the first in its kind. Even when Eritrea gets its independence, the international law called Ute Possibilité de jure should be implemented, but they didn't do that also. And it's an amazing thing to see them now today arguing under the international law. When Eritrea gets its independence, and international law and the OAU
With the
Cairo
international law
Agreement,
code, what?
the
Sorry?
1964 Cairo Agreement stated that when you get your independence from a country, you're going to leave. Your territory is going to be the one you are administering. You cannot add others. The Americans were telling them not to give 2 ports, but they say they don't want it. They can take it. So I think it is related to their. It's not only that they are siding with Eritrea, but I think it is related to their education, because their education and their ideology. Those peoples are geographical political system. They are looking for. They are using ethnicity, language, and something like that. In geopolitics, it is called geographical politics. There is geopolitics and there is the other one is geographical politics. So they don't understand about the sea power. They're just rebels. So they try to give away while they are a transitional government. Even they are not a government. They are not elected by the people. There are lots of evidence which shows that even after they become government, a war broke out, and when they can achieve the gaining our port, they blocked the soldiers from going to the port. The ruler at the time his name is Malla Zenawi. His mother is called his father is Zenawi Asras, and his mother is called Alammash. She's from Eritrea. So he was more tilting to Eritrea than he was working for Ethiopia, including in the international courts. The proof, as I told you, the proof that he brought is the colonial proof, which has been already cancelled because Ethiopia, after 5 years of occupation, Ethiopia kicked them out from Ethiopia, from their occupation in Ethiopia. The Italians, that's what I'm talking about. So he activated this law and signed the Algiers Agreement, which stated that the ruling of the court would be binding on Ethiopia.
Yeah, you mentioned it's an issue of also education and so on.
It was called the Piccolo
Eritrea
Roma.
has had a lot of.
It was called Piccolo Roma.
At least historically, had a lot more Italian infrastructure and exposure. There's a lot of people that these YouTubers that go to Asmara and say it looks so Italian, and although it's all run down, but that's also a sign of small Rome, I think. So were they generally more favored in terms of development and sort of Western education?
You mean which time are we talking about?
Compared to the inside, like the hinterlands of Ethiopia at that time, as the map used to include, when the map used to include Eritrea?
It was limited. Fought without getting tired to not to be colonized is by looking at the Eritreans.
But there was,
because there was a system called Madamito, that any woman, any black man and woman walking on the street, an Italian officer can take her away from you. That's a law. It is called Madamito.
Margarito law. That's similar to miscegenation in other like British colonies and even in Jim Crow America.
Yeah, the apartheid system, just like it was the apartheid system.
Sexes, potential
Ethiopians
relationships
really don't have
across racial lines was not allowed, such that mixed race children were illegal.
Yeah, so I think I can carry on. I think it's a really great background that you provided us with, Yafet. I think Ethiopia is rich in many things, and history is definitely one of those things. So it's really good to show us how we ended up in this sort of a situation. So just moving into the current time where we are right now, Ethiopia is, as we mentioned, is currently landlocked. And Ethiopia really still, despite it being landlocked, is really doing, relatively well for itself, huge coffee producer, cut flowers producer, and many other things as well. I think with the new dam as well, their electricity exports is probably going to increase. So I think
The
the
Grand Ethiopian
Ethiopian
Renaissance GERD.
precisely, yeah. So for our listeners, you know, Ethiopia is landlocked. They have all these produce, and they need to obviously ship it because typically some of their products are export oriented, such as the cut flowers. Um, So I guess the question is because the government at this time, which is led by Abiy Ahmed, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, often frames the sea access as an economic necessity and national security issue. Um, what are the arguments that the government provides for this? And also at the same time, what are the responses from the neighboring states? Because from my knowledge, just for our listeners, I believe Ethiopia pays close between 1 billion to 2 billion US dollars to Djibouti just to get access to
So
to the Red Sea.
for the
Bit of a
first
long-winded
time
question,
after
but
the fall of the Derg regime, lots of people, for example, starting from the transitional period, at Addis Ababa University, a medical professor called Professor Asrat Waldayas was in jail for many years by the Eritrean, the EPLF and TPLF because he requested for this issue. You could be arrested for asking this question. You know, they were working for it. You know, lots of oppositions were asked, you know, were being called that they are, you know, they are trying to invade other countries. The EPRDF was saying that. Now, when Abiy came to power, he tried to bring out all the history, like how we were very close to the sea, how our development was related to the sea, but our security also is related to the sea. But after we lose our ports, our access to the sea, we are more facing different problems. One of the problems, as you would have known, is the militarization of the Horn of Africa because of its location. So this militarization creates big problem for people who have more people. For example, Ethiopia, if Djibouti holds the military base for Japan, military base for different countries. You know, Turkey has joined this base. Yeah, there are 6, but well, the major ones are the Chinese and the Americans, the French. It was the Americans
I
are
think there are about
in
6
the
military
French,
bases
in the
in
former
Djibouti, yeah?
French military base.
China,
So when you see that
Italy, UK, yeah,
those
US.
things, and when you see that how easily things could, especially with the conflict between US and China in that area, how things could change, and 130 million people of yours is dependent on that port, so that you cannot bring in any kind of items to your import any kind of items, medicine or anything, because you don't have access by yourself. So this deliberate action of TPLF made us cost a lot. Our everything that we import are expensive, including the fertilizer we import. One of the fertilizers, 83% of Ethiopian people are agriculture. Lives in the rural area, and they are 70. I think it's 75%. They are agrarians. So these people need fertilizers, and we can only import through that port. Even they didn't try to diversify our import. So these problems start to exist, and Abiy start noticing it, especially in the northern conflict. The northern conflict was internal conflict. So when we try to buy weapons, because the TPLF, the one who was doing this, the one which their story is being told, like they're supporting Eritrea and something, those the same people start a war after they've been kicked out by public demonstration from Addis Ababa. So they went. It is just like the Chinese and the island. What was the name of the island? So the Taiwan, or I think it's Taiwan. Taiwan, yes. So the story is the same as the Taiwan. Yeah. So those people who went from administrating China, they went to Taiwan and they become separatists. The same way
Taiwan, yeah.
the TPLF
Taiwan,
went to
yeah.
Tigray,
Or officially the
and
Republic of China.
during the COVID
Yeah.
time, they said that they are going to have election, and war broke out because of that. After that, they attacked the Northern Command. The command, which the army which is protecting them from Eritrea, they attacked the Northern Command and came to the TV and said that we attacked the Northern Command. By the next day, they deny it, by the way, after they say they have they attack the command like lightning speed. We strike it like lightning speed. And this TPLF, the party I'm talking about, not our people in the north or our families in the north, but this doesn't stop there. Like they took rockets and start shooting and destroying the Ethiopian defense equipments. So Abiy tried to bring in some weapons, and the US and some countries, especially during the Biden administration, they were having some, they were having a deep relationship with this administration of TPLF. So they tried to gain a leverage on it. So when he tried to import weapons, the weapons were being seized by the US. And we don't have any other system. And we are going to be the same thing. By the way, they have done the same thing when we were during the Battle of Adwa. They have done the same thing, trying to
the famous battle where
stop
he
us from
defeated
gaining
Italians in 1894.
proper access to the sea,
Yeah, Menelik
and
II,
trade
King
through
Menelik
that.
II.
They have tried multiple times. Considering that, for the first time, Abiy Ahmed starts saying that peacefully, starting from the first day up to now. Last week he was in the parliament, and every time when he talks about getting an access to the sea, what he mainly say is that in peaceful process. So the access to the sea policy for the first time came from a government. It was really surprising for most of us, because
I definitely
we have
understand.
never heard for the last. I'm 30-something years old, and I've
Sorry,
never
I
heard.
definitely understand the peaceful
illegal
aspect
to request for the access to the sea, especially the Asaf. That much they were standing for they were administrating Ethiopia, but they were working for Eritrea. Still now they're when Abiy tried to say try to kick the Eritreans out, TPLF is siding with the Eritreans, which they were multiple times mentioned. If you go and see the interviews of Debrecen, they were mentioning that the Eritrean government raped, done this and that. Now they are siding with them because Abiy is trying to kick them out from the border areas which they are entering. The Eritrean regime is entering here. They are defending Isaias. So it's a lots of his history, but when Abiy came to power, he's trying to substitute items in his economic plan. Substituting items is one of the things. And for example, we don't bring coal from other countries. We try to reduce the expenditure, Ethiopia's expenditure of the import by replacing it by the one that we produce here. A lot of things, just like the fertilizers, one of the biggest with expenditure of Ethiopia is fertilizers. Yeah. So we're trying to produce also fertilizers here in Somali region during Abiy Ahmed time. Now, the other step he asked was that he need access to the
Nitrogen.
sea because
Yeah.
Ethiopia
Nitrogen
has
fertilizer.
ships.
Yeah.
Just because some countries have fight, Ethiopia need to protect its interest on the sea, protects their Ethiopia's shipments, both import and export. When Ethiopia starts stating this and they need a military base, access to the sea and a base, if any of those countries could give him for a navy base, Somaliland was willing in exchange of in exchange for their recognition and a share from Ethiopian Airlines or the Ethiopian United System. So and the Ethiopian Telecom also.
Yeah, but what happened? What happened to that? Because that was in 2023 or 2024.
Yeah, the Ankara
No,
Agreement.
2020. Yeah, 2024. And then there was some kind of mediation that was supposed to be done by the AU. Then eventually it was taken up by Turkey.
Eritrea.
And then there was an agreement.
Check this thing out. Check. On the 8th of January 2024, Isaias invited Somalia, so it's a Somali president, and said that he supports
right?
the
2024.
The territorial integrity of Somalia. One Somalia. He accepts one Somalia ideology. Eritrea is the same. If you think about the history, if we talk about history, Eritrea is the same. The guy is a fallacy, I know. Whenever you see his interviews, you would understand him, but full of fallacies. But this one is really, huge. After when Ethiopia stopped thinking about gaining access to the sea through using the Asab port and start to look for to diversify its import-export through the Berbera port, Isaias Afwerki created an alliance against Ethiopia. So it is really amazing that how much the Eritrean regime is always stuck on us. But, I try to look for one of his videos, and during my study, I start to understand that Eritrea is he is one of the people, a meeting on a public. He stated that the reason that Egypt support Eritrea is to be a tool to destabilize Ethiopia. This is the direct word that I'm telling you, the direct word that he's saying. Even if we call it a support, Egypt support us for two things. The Egyptians have two interests: to destabilize and to make Ethiopia restless. And the second point is the access to the sea, to block Ethiopia from the access to the sea. When Eritrea got its independence, let me finish this for you guys. The former foreign minister of Egypt, who should have asked
Egypt,
why the resolution 390 was not respected, why the Ute Possibility law was not respected. The guy was Egyptian former foreign minister called Boutros Ghali.
Boutros Ghali also was the first African Secretary General of the United Nations. Just some context.
Yes.
He was an Egyptian, as you said, former foreign minister, and he was Secretary General of the UN in the early 1990s. He only served for one term, and was succeeded by Kofi Annan. So Isaias Afwerki has been president for a very, very long time. And Eritrea is famous for its lack of democracy, albeit in a region where the bar for democracy isn't very high. Eritrea seems to beat these records as well. it has never had a presidential election ever since ever, I think, unless I'm wrong. And the last parliament, yeah, and they have never had a parliamentary election since the early 2000s. Now, in the event that Isaias Afwerki, due to natural causes, passes away, um, what happens? Do you think a new government in Eritrea will be willing to provide actual access to the sea in a peaceful manner? Um, and access to the sea comes in different sort of ways. And I just did a quick look up. I just did a quick look up on how countries have lost and regained access to their sea. Many of the examples, I think the biggest example is actually Poland. Many people don't know this. Poland, in the late 18th century, after partitions of Poland in 1795, was the access to the sea was wiped off by Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Russia, but it regained it in 1918 to 1920 after World War One, and the Polish corridor to the Baltic Sea was also created through the Treaty of Versailles that ended World War One. Lithuania also, during periods of foreign domination by Russian Empire, later USSR, regained it in 1990 following independence from the Soviet Union. The sea access was actually the Baltic Sea. Um, but other countries that have lost it and not got access to the sea again include Serbia in 2006 after Montenegro's independence, has no access to the sea. Serbia was part of Yugoslavia during the Cold War. Bolivia, but Bolivia is much older, 1879 to 1884. There was a Pacific War, lost access to the sea to Chile, never regained access, it's now landlocked. So um, there's a number of examples through different treaties. So it has been done where countries have lost access and regained access in relatively peaceful manner. And they have really sort of walked us through the history and the full perspective um, of Ethiopia that many of us, I think, wouldn't even know, especially the legal side of affairs and the sheer economic weight that Ethiopia is finding itself in, given the fact that it used to have access to the sea and now it doesn't. And also the perspective of wanting to work with other countries. Um, of course, I mean, this is geopolitics, it's politics. People always debate, people always disagree and agree. So I would not be surprised if someone will say no or yes, but I think we have really had a very comprehensive discussion. And of course, provided by Yafet Mekonnen. You know, I always tease people with this surname. I always accuse them of being related to Haile Selassie. So I'm always like, you should claim your inheritance. But so no, I think it's been absolutely wonderful to have you on, Yafet, academic, scholar, consultant. His consultancy, by the way, it's called Blue Swan Consultancy. So he studied at the prestigious University of Addis Ababa. And yeah, we are extremely happy to have had you on here after
Yeah.
several years of planning. This is our first episode on Ethiopia in what, 3 years? In a while, yeah. So
Yeah.
in Ethiopia they say I'm a signal, and then so that's thank you.
Yeah.
That's the little I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much.